It was a sunny Saturday afternoon, the kind of day that makes you want to sit outside with a cup of tea and just watch the world go by. I pulled into my sister's driveway, the one with the bright flowers she always fusses over, and saw Emily sprawled on the couch inside, earbuds in. Completely absorbed in her laptop, I stepped inside and called out, "Emily." "Hi there, how's my favorite niece doing today?" She peeked at me over the laptop and rolled her eyes, a small grin tugging at the corner of her mouth. "Hey, Auntie," she said, half distracted. "I'm fine, busy with." I asked, trying to sound casual, though I already knew the answer. She smirked, flipping her hair dramatically. "School stuff. You wouldn't understand, Auntie. You're too old." "Ah, yes, too old." That phrase hit me like a splash of cold water, and for a second, I just stood there, smiling quietly. Too old to understand, really? I decided not to answer immediately. Instead, I wandered into the living room, sat on the armchair, and took a moment to observe her. There she was, all confidence and bravado, typing furiously on her laptop. Her textbooks were scattered on the coffee table, post-it notes stuck to every page, a half-drunk smoothie sweating on the side. She looked stressed, frustrated, and in that moment, I realized. She thought she had it all under control, that she didn't need help, that she was doing this alone. Little did she know. She wasn't. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a cup of tea, and let out a small sigh. These moments always remind me of my own college days. Oh, the memories. Late-night study sessions, part-time jobs, sneaking into libraries that smelled of old books and coffee. I remembered working at a diner just to pay for textbooks, delivering newspapers at dawn, and sometimes skipping meals just to make ends meet. I sat down at the kitchen table, watching Emily through the doorway. She was scrolling through her laptop, typing, muttering under her breath. She had that look, the one that says, "I'm smarter than everyone else and I don't need anyone." And that's when I decided I'd let her think she was independent for a little longer, not because I wanted her to struggle, but because sometimes the best lessons come quietly, without anyone knowing they're being taught. I called out, "So Emily, how's that big project coming along? Are you staying on top of it?" She glanced at me, eyebrows raised. "Yeah, Auntie, I'm fine. Don't worry about me." I smiled, trying to hide the small thrill I felt knowing the secret she didn't. "I remember when I had a project like that," I said. "I stayed up all night trying to finish it. I drank way too much coffee and probably scared the cat half to death with my pacing." Emily laughed, a short little burst that made me smile. "Wow, you must have been exhausting back then," she said teasingly. "Oh, absolutely. And don't even get me started on the group projects. Let's just say, some people never learn how to pull their weight." I replied, smirking. She rolled her eyes and went back to typing. "You wouldn't understand, Auntie. Times are different now." I chuckled softly. "Times are different, yes. But some things never change. The stress, the pressure, the fear of failing. That's always there, no matter what year it is." She paused, just for a moment, staring at me. Then she went back to her typing, her fingers flying over the keys like little lightning bolts. Over the next hour, I moved around the house, tidying up a little, making small comments here and there. "Don't forget to eat lunch," I said as I put a sandwich on the table. "You'll need your energy for that project." "Thanks, Auntie," she muttered, not looking up. I added gently, "You know, I remember paying for my own tuition once. It wasn't easy. I had to work, save, budget every penny. It's a lot to handle." She snorted softly. "Yeah, well, you're too old to understand." Ah, there it was again. That phrase, and I smiled quietly to myself. She had no idea who had been quietly handling the money for her all these years. Let me tell you something Emily didn't know. Every semester, every late fee, every book she thought she had bought with her own money, it was me. I had been quietly paying for it all. Sometimes, I would drop an envelope in her mailbox. Other times, I would go to the bank late at night to make a transfer. Every time I saw her stressed about money, I took care of it, without saying a word. It wasn't about recognition. It wasn't about thanks. It was about love, plain and simple. And there she was, sitting in front of me, teasing me for being too old to understand. And I knew that moment would be perfect when the truth came out. I watched her a little longer, seeing the little things she didn't notice, the sticky notes marking her deadlines, the barely finished coffee, the open textbooks she had to cross-reference constantly. She was working hard, Yes, but she didn't know how much easier I had made things for her without her ever realizing, and I thought, some lessons are better learned slowly. Sometimes, people need to figure out the truth on their own, and sometimes, the best thing we can do is quietly support them while letting them believe they're doing it all themselves. I poured another cup of tea and whispered to myself, let's see how long it takes for her to notice. She's going to be surprised, and maybe learn something important along the way. I smiled at the thought. Little did Emily know, this ordinary Saturday afternoon would become a story she'd remember forever. I decided to sit quietly on the couch, pretending to scroll through my phone while really watching Emily work. She had this determined little frown, lips pursed, and her eyes darting back and forth between her textbook and the laptop. Honestly, it reminded me so much of myself when I was her age, so confident that I knew everything, and yet so unaware of the little things that could make life easier. I chuckled to myself. Kids these days, I muttered softly, thinking they can handle it all. Then Emily groaned, tossing her pen across the coffee table. Ugh, this is impossible. Why do professors make things so complicated? I leaned forward, trying to sound encouraging. You know, when I was in college, I used to think the same thing. I'd look at an assignment and think, nope, not happening. And then I'd take a deep breath, sip my coffee, and tackle it one step at a time. Emily glanced at me briefly. You really did that? Auntie, I can't even imagine you as a college student. Oh, you'd be surprised, I said with a grin. I once spilled soup on my final project the night before it was due. True story. I stayed up all night fixing it and barely slept. And my roommate, she laughed at me the entire time. I think she still tells that story today. Emily laughed this time. A genuine one, not the teasing one. Wow, I guess even you had rough days, huh? Every single one, I said. And let me tell you, those rough days are easier when someone quietly has your back. She raised an eyebrow at me. Someone quietly. I smiled, keeping the secret close. Exactly. Someone quietly, asterisk as I watched her. Memories of those quiet acts came flooding back. The late nights at the bank, counting the bills before slipping them into envelopes. The times I stayed up, staring at my computer screen, double-checking online payments to make sure they went through before deadlines. The small sigh of relief when I knew she wouldn't have to worry about money. It was all so ordinary. But it mattered. Oh, did it matter? And Emily had no idea. None at all. She thought she was doing it all herself. I leaned back in my chair and whispered softly, someday, Emily, you'll understand what it means to have someone quietly supporting you. Little did I know, that day would come sooner than I expected. Emily suddenly groaned again and flopped backward onto the couch. Her earbuds fell out and she muttered, why is this so hard? I've done everything I can. I walked over, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Sometimes, it's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing your best, step by step. She looked at me, her eyes a mixture of frustration and wonder. You make it sound so easy, Auntie. I don't know how you did it. Oh, I didn't always do it easily, I said. I once stayed up for 3 nights straight just to finish a project because I didn't have enough money to get help. Coffee and determination were my best friends back then. She laughed again, shaking her head. You're impossible. Too old to understand, remember, I smiled. Maybe, but old doesn't mean useless. And maybe I've learned a thing or two about handling pressure quietly. She rolled her eyes, but gave me a small grin. As if acknowledging my point, I watched her closely, noticing the little things she didn't realize. The way she tapped her pencil nervously, the stacks of paper threatening to fall off her desk, the unfinished cup of smoothie now mostly melted, and the tiny sighs she let out whenever a problem seemed too big to handle. She looked so young, yet stressed beyond measure, and I thought, if only she knew. If only she knew how much easier I had tried to make this for her. If only she knew that all those late-night worries she carried, I had been carrying them too, silently. I shook my head with a small smile. Someday, Emily, you'll see, I whispered. And maybe you'll appreciate it more than you think. To lighten the tension, I grabbed a cookie from the plate I had set out earlier and held it up. Here, take a break. You know what my professor once said about late-night study sessions? Emily glanced at me, curious despite herself. What? They said, if you survive caffeine and chaos, you survive life. She laughed a longer, more genuine laugh this time. Auntie, you're ridiculous, I know, I said, smiling. But ridiculous works sometimes. After that, I decided to move to the next room. giving her some space to work while keeping a watchful eye. Every so often, I peeked in, noticing how frustrated she got over little mistakes, how proud she looked when she figured something out, and how much determination she put into her work. And I thought, quietly to myself, soon, she'll know. Soon, she'll see that all these small struggles weren't hers alone to carry. I smiled, sipping my tea, knowing the moment of truth was coming, the moment when Emily would finally understand the meaning of quiet support, of love that doesn't need applause, and of lessons learned in the most unexpected ways. Emily was hunched over her laptop again, typing so fast I thought her fingers might start smoking. Her brow was furrowed, her pencil tapping nervously on the desk, and her smoothie cup was now nothing more than a sad puddle of melted ice. I walked over, trying to sound casual. "How's it going, Emily?" She didn't look up. "Fine, just stressed." I raised an eyebrow. "Stressed, huh? Sounds familiar." She rolled her eyes. "Yeah, Auntie, I bet you've never been stressed in your life." I chuckled softly, leaning against the doorway. "You'd be surprised. I've had my fair share of stressful nights, projects, deadlines, money worries. But you know what helped? Someone quietly making sure I could focus on the work without worrying about everything else." She finally looked up, curiosity flashing in her eyes. Quietly, "What do you mean?" I smiled, letting the moment stretch just a little longer. "Patience is everything." I thought over the next hour. I continued my little hints, casually mentioning bills, textbooks, and deadlines. "Oh, I remember buying my own textbooks once. Took me 3 weeks of work at the diner just to afford one," I said, pouring myself another cup of tea. Emily muttered, "That's terrible. I'm glad I don't have to deal with that." I smiled quietly. "You might think that now, but sometimes the ones you think are handling it all alone aren't really alone." Her eyes narrowed, as if she sensed there was a story she wasn't hearing. "Auntie, are you saying you helped someone?" I shrugged casually, taking a sip of tea. "Maybe, maybe not. Who knows?" I leaned back in my chair, letting the memory play out in my mind like a movie. Every semester, I had gone to the bank late at night, making sure her tuition payments were covered. I remembered the time the bank teller had raised an eyebrow when I came in at 10 p.m., muttering about deadlines and forms. "All good?" she had asked. "Yes, very good," I had replied, forcing a smile while secretly worrying the payment wouldn't go through. Other times, I had dropped envelopes into the mailbox, carefully sliding them in between bills, receipts, and junk mail. Small, unnoticed gestures that made the difference between her stressing and her succeeding. And every time she fretted over fees, I stayed quiet, thinking, let her think she's doing it herself. Let her grow. Let her learn without realizing she's being cared for. That afternoon, I decided it was time. Emily was frustrated, exhausted, muttering about deadlines, textbooks, and loans. "Perfect." I approached her gently. "Emily," I said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. She looked up, eyes wide and wary. "Yes, Auntie." I took a deep breath. "Do you know who paid your tuition all these years?" Her eyes went wide, and she blinked at me like she didn't understand. What?" I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "It was me. Every semester, every book, every late fee, every time you thought you were paying for yourself. It was me." Her mouth dropped open. She stared at me, completely frozen. Then a small, incredulous laugh escaped her. "You what? Auntie, why didn't you tell me?" I shrugged casually, keeping my tone gentle. "Because I wanted you to handle things on your own for a while, but I also wanted you to know, when the time was right, that you weren't alone." She shook her head slowly, muttering, I can't believe this. All this time, you were doing this?" "Yes, Emily, every single time." She paused, then suddenly burst into laughter, a mix of shock, disbelief, and nervous energy. I laughed at you. I said you were too old to understand. How could I have been so blind?" I smiled softly. "Sometimes the people who seem old or out of touch are the ones quietly holding everything together." I could see her mind racing through the memories. Every time she had whispered to her friends about struggling to pay tuition, every late night she fretted over fees, every small complaint about books, deadlines, or supplies. She had never known that I was behind it all. That every worry she thought was hers alone had been shared silently. I remembered the time she had been ready to skip a class because of money, and I had quietly slipped a check into her bag. Or the time she wanted a book that was too expensive and had sighed loudly in the library. I had already ordered it for her, all unnoticed, all quiet, but all done with love. Emily suddenly hugged me, tight, strong, like she was trying to make up for years of not knowing. I had no idea, Auntie. I was so rude. I laughed at you, she whispered. I held her close. It's okay. What matters is you know now. And maybe, just maybe, you'll see things differently from now on. She pulled back slightly, wiping tears from her eyes. I understand now. I really do. You've been supporting me all this time, and I never even knew. I smiled warmly. Exactly. Sometimes love doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's quiet, patient, and hidden, but it's always there. Emily sat back slowly, staring at me like I had just announced aliens were landing in the backyard. Her hands were still trembling a little from the shock. Wait, are you serious? She asked. Yes, I said, nodding. Completely serious. Every time you thought you were paying your tuition, it was me. Her mouth opened and closed several times, as if she were searching for words. I don't even know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything, I replied softly. Just take a moment, let it sink in. She looked around the room, eyes wide, as if suddenly seeing all the textbooks, the papers, and even the coffee stains for the first time. All these years, you've been supporting me, quietly. Yes, I said, smiling. Quietly, no fanfare, no drama, just because I love you. A wave of emotion washed over her. She suddenly burst into laughter, nervous, incredulous, but also relieved. I can't believe it. I laughed at you for being too old, and all this time, you were the one holding it all together. I chuckled softly. That's life, Emily. Sometimes the people who seem old or out of touch are quietly doing the most important things. She shook her head, still laughing and tearing up. I feel so guilty. I can't believe I didn't realize it. I've been bragging about how independent I am, and wow, I guess I really wasn't as independent as I thought. I reached over, holding her hand gently. It's okay. That's part of growing up. And now that you know, you can carry it forward in your own way. To lighten the mood, I smiled and said, you know, when I was your age, I did the same thing to my parents. I thought I was handling it all, and they were just there, quietly, saving me from disaster. Emily laughed again, wiping tears from her eyes. So it's genetic, generational guilt? Exactly, I said, grinning. Welcome to the family club. She giggled, leaning back in her chair. I never want to owe anyone again, she said half seriously. I shook my head. Oh honey, life is full of debts we never see. Sometimes the real lesson isn't about money, it's about love, care, and patience. Those debts aren't bad. They're what make life meaningful. Emily paused, her fingers nervously twisting the edge of her notebook. All those nights I stressed about money. I thought I was on my own. I was panicking about fees, thinking I'd have to drop a class or work a crazy job to make ends meet. And all this time, you were quietly handling it. Yes, I said gently. And I did it not because I wanted thanks, but because I knew how capable you are. I knew that if you thought you were doing it alone, you'd grow stronger, but I also knew I could quietly make sure things didn't get too hard. She looked down at her hands, slowly nodding. I get it now. I really do, and I appreciate it more than I can even say. I remembered specific moments. The envelope slipped into her mailbox just before she panicked about a late fee. The surprise book delivery to her dorm when she thought she couldn't afford the text. Late night online transfers to ensure her tuition cleared. My small notes tucked into packages. Don't stress, you've got this. Auntie, and I realized. All those invisible acts had shaped her life in ways she would only truly understand now. Emily laughed again, this time fully, a sound that filled the room. I can't believe I doubted you. I thought you were too old to understand school, money, or life, and here you are, quietly holding everything together. I winked. Old doesn't mean useless, Emily, it just means I've had more practice. She giggled, shaking her head. You're impossible, Auntie, and you're learning, I replied softly. She suddenly leaned over and hugged me tightly. Thank you, she whispered, for everything, for believing in me, for supporting me, even when I didn't know, even when I laughed at you. I hugged her back, feeling my heart swell. That's what love does, Emily. It works quietly, patiently, and without asking for anything in return. She pulled back slightly, looking at me with wide, sincere eyes. I'll never forget this. I promise. As I watched her go back to her laptop, this time with a small, genuine smile, I realized something important. Emily had grown in ways she didn't even know. She had learned a lesson in humility, gratitude, and the power of quiet support. And the next part of her journey? That's when she started showing real growth, taking responsibility, being more thoughtful, and ultimately surprising me with a decision that would warm my heart like nothing else. That's where we'll pick up in part 3, when Emily's reaction and newfound maturity start to shine through in everyday life, giving us all a lesson in love, patience, and the power of subtle support. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of brewing coffee and the soft hum of the city outside. I found Emily already at the kitchen table, textbook spread in front of her, laptop open, and a cup of tea steaming beside her. She looked up at me, a small, determined smile on her face. "Good morning, Auntie." "Good morning, Emily," I replied, smiling. "Sleep well?" "Not really," she admitted. "I kept thinking about everything, about what you told me yesterday." I nodded, sipping my tea. "That's natural. It's a lot to process. But sometimes understanding comes slowly." She stared down at her notebook for a moment. I didn't realize how much I relied on you without knowing. I feel grateful but also guilty, I guess." I reached across the table, lightly touching her hand. "Gratitude is good, Emily. Guilt, not so much. The point isn't to feel bad. The point is to learn, grow, and notice how much quiet support shapes our lives." Over the next few days, Emily started noticing things she had never paid attention to before. The little notes I left in her room, the small gestures I made to help her focus, even the quiet way I rearranged her study area to make it easier to work. She caught herself saying quietly to herself, "So that's why Auntie does that. It makes sense now." At the same time, she began taking responsibility in small ways. She started setting reminders for assignments, organizing her textbooks, and even helping her friends with their studies, something she had never done before without being asked. I watched her with a quiet sense of pride. It wasn't about the tuition anymore. It was about growth, humility, and understanding the value of quiet support. One afternoon, Emily came to me, looking slightly anxious. "Auntie, I don't know how to thank you properly. I mean, everything you've done." I shook my head gently. "Emily, you don't have to. Seeing you grow, learn, and take care of yourself, that's thanks enough. But if you really want to show appreciation, pay it forward someday. Help someone quietly, without asking for recognition." She nodded slowly, her eyes thoughtful. I think I understand. Not just the tuition but everything. How support can be quiet but powerful." "Exactly," I said. "Sometimes the most important help is invisible, and that's okay. It doesn't make it any less real or valuable." Of course, not everything was serious. Emily and I had our usual playful moments, teasing and laughing together. One day, she spilled coffee on her notes. "Ugh, I can't do anything right today," she groaned. I laughed. "Welcome to life, kiddo. Coffee stains are just proof you're working hard. And besides, I've seen worse." She rolled her eyes. "You mean from your college days?" "Oh yes," I said, grinning. "I once spilled soup on my final project and had to fix it overnight. My roommate still tells that story." We both laughed. The tension of the tuition reveal slowly giving way to comfort, understanding, and renewed closeness. A few days later, I noticed Emily helping a younger cousin with homework. She explained patiently, gave gentle encouragement, and even left a small note. "You've got this, Emily." I smiled quietly. That's what I hoped would happen. She was learning the power of quiet support not through lectures, but by living it, and that made my heart swell. Watching Emily grow in these small ways reminded me of the importance of patience. Support doesn't always have to be loud. Guidance doesn't always have to be obvious. And love, real love, is sometimes the quietest thing of all, quietly shaping someone's life while letting them feel independent. I realized that this aftermath after the reveal was just as important as the tuition secret itself. It was the real transformation. Emily learning humility, gratitude, and how to quietly support others. Over the next week, I began noticing small, yet significant, changes in Emily. She woke up earlier to organize her notes, made sure her assignments were planned, and even packed her lunch instead of grabbing random snacks. One morning, she looked up from her breakfast and said, "Auntie, I think I finally understand how much effort you put into helping me. I don't want to take that for granted anymore." I smiled quietly. "It's okay, Emily. The important part is that you're noticing now." She nodded, determination flashing in her eyes. And I want to do better not just for me, but for others too. Asterisk of course, life wasn't all serious growth. Humor still found its way in. One day, she spilled tea on her laptop while trying to type an essay. Ugh, my life is falling apart. She groaned. I laughed. Relax, Emily, you've survived worse. Remember when I spilled soup on my final project? This is nothing. She rolled her eyes but laughed too. Okay, fine. But you really do have a story for every disaster, don't you? That's the advantage of age, I said with a wink. We collect stories so we can laugh at them later. Asterisk Emily's growth wasn't just about herself. I noticed her quietly helping her classmates who were struggling. She'd explain concepts patiently, share notes, or leave encouraging messages. One afternoon, I caught her slipping a small note into a friend's notebook. Don't stress. You've got this. Emily, I smiled to myself. That simple gesture made my heart swell. The lesson I had tried to teach her about quiet support was taking root. Asterisk I saw an opportunity to guide her gently. Emily, I said one evening, you're learning something important. Real support doesn't need applause. The best kind is quiet. Like what you just did for your friend. She nodded, thoughtful. I understand, it's kind of like what you did for me all those years. Yes, I said. And now you're ready to carry it forward. That's what makes all the difference. Asterisk Emily began reflecting on herself more openly. She realized her previous arrogance, thinking she was independent while I had quietly supported her. But now, she felt confident and capable in a new, mature way. She even started taking initiative around the house, helping with chores without being asked, making little gestures to ease the stress for everyone. One evening, she looked at me with a grin. Auntie, I feel different. I don't just get it in theory, I feel it. I want to do more, help more, be better. I nodded, a quiet pride swelling in my chest. That's all I ever hoped for, Emily, that you'd see the value of care, patience, and quiet love. Asterisk she'd make tea for both of us when I was working in the kitchen, leave little notes on my desk, or quietly organize the stack of mail I hadn't had time to sort. One day, she even jokingly said, I feel like a mini auntie now. Secret helper quietly fixing things. I laughed. Exactly. And someday, someone will be lucky enough to have you quietly holding their back, just like I did for you. Her grin widened. I'll try to live up to it. Asterisk it was clear that the tuition reveal had transformed more than just Emily's understanding of her finances. It had shifted her perspective on life, gratitude, humility, and the quiet power of love. I realized that the real story wasn't just about the tuition payments, it was about how care, patience, and subtle guidance could nurture growth in ways that loud gestures never could. And as I watched her work, laugh, and quietly help others, I knew that this was only the beginning of her transformation. Asterisk by the end of that week, Emily had changed in small, meaningful ways. She was more organized, more thoughtful, and more willing to support others quietly. But there was still one big step ahead, one that would show just how far she had come. Next, in part 4, Emily would take a bold, unexpected step that would warm my heart and demonstrate her newfound maturity and generosity. Viewers are left with anticipation, knowing that the tuition reveal was just the start of her real growth. Asterisk it had been a few weeks since the tuition reveal, and Emily had changed in small, meaningful ways. But today, she looked unusually thoughtful. She paced the living room, her laptop open on the coffee table, fingers tapping her chin. I raised an eyebrow. What's on your mind, Emily? She jumped slightly. Oh, Auntie, nothing, just thinking. I smiled knowingly. Thinking usually means planning something big. She paused, biting her lip. Maybe. Asterisk as she continued pacing, I noticed the little changes, the way she straightened the cushions on the couch without being asked, the way she had neatly organized her notes on the table, even how carefully she poured her tea. You've really changed, I said softly. I can see it in how you move, how you act. You're more thoughtful. She blushed slightly. I guess I'm trying to be better. After everything you've done for me, I want to do something meaningful, something that shows I care. I smiled warmly. You don't have to plan anything huge, Emily. The smallest acts can mean the most. Her eyes sparkled with determination. I know, and this is going to be something big. Over the next few hours, Emily quietly began making calls, sending emails, and jotting notes on her laptop. I watched, intrigued but careful not to interfere. She was clearly planning something with purpose. Finally, she looked up at me, a mix of excitement and nerves in her eyes. Auntie, I think I know how I can give back. Not just to you, but to others too. I tilted my head. Go on, she grinned. I want to help students like me, students who need support but don't know where to ask for it. I want to start a small scholarship fund, or maybe even just a quiet program to help pay tuition for someone struggling. I blinked, pleasantly shocked. Emily, that's incredible. You're taking the lessons you learned and turning them into action. Asterisk, she laughed nervously. I know it sounds huge, Auntie, but I can't stop thinking about how much you did for me quietly. I want to do the same for someone else. I smiled, teasing slightly. Careful, Emily, you might be turning into a mini auntie sooner than expected. She laughed, rolling her eyes. I guess I am. I reached out, squeezing her hand. And that's wonderful, because quiet support, just like you're planning, is one of the most powerful things in the world. Asterisk as she spoke. Memories of my own quiet support for her resurfaced. The envelopes slipped into the mailbox, the late-night online payments, the surprise books and notes. Every small act I had done for her now seemed to have come full circle. I realized that Emily had internalized the lessons of quiet love, patience, and thoughtful care, and she was ready to act on them herself. Asterisk over the next few days, Emily began contacting her network of friends and classmates, quietly gathering information about students who needed help. She researched scholarship options, spoke with financial aid offices, and carefully planned how she could distribute aid without making it about herself. Each night, she would sit at the kitchen table, jotting down notes while sipping tea, occasionally glancing at me with a small smile. I hope I can make a difference, Auntie, she whispered. You already have, Emily, I said softly, just by caring enough to try. Asterisk, it was a bright Saturday morning when Emily woke me up with a sense of purpose I hadn't seen before. She had a folder of papers, a neatly written plan, and a small notebook filled with names of students who needed help. Auntie, she said, excitement and nerves mixing in her voice. Today I start helping. I've arranged the first scholarship payments. I even drafted personal notes for each recipient. I smiled, proud but trying to hide it. I see, and how do you feel about this first step? She paused, taking a deep breath. Nervous but good. I feel like I'm finally doing something meaningful, like I can give back in a way that matters. Good, I said softly. Because that feeling will grow every time you quietly help someone. And trust me, it matters more than you think. Asterisk, Emily drove to the college's financial aid office, clutching an envelope and her notes tightly. She handed them to the administrator, who smiled warmly. This is thoughtful, the administrator said. These funds will help a student who really needs it. We'll make sure they receive it quietly, without revealing the donor. Emily's cheeks flushed with pride and humility. Thank you, I just want them to succeed without worrying like I did. She left the office feeling lighter, a small spark of joy in her chest. This is real, she whispered to herself. I can really make a difference. Asterisk back at home, I watched Emily as she called another student to offer support. She was patient, kind, and careful, making sure the recipient understood the help without feeling embarrassed. I couldn't help but smile. The girl who had laughed at me for being too old was now quietly learning the power of giving without recognition. Look at you, I said softly, passing on what you've learned. I couldn't be prouder. She glanced up at me, grinning sheepishly. I hope I'm doing it right. You're doing perfectly, I said. Asterisk, of course. Things weren't all smooth. One student accidentally sent an email to the wrong address. Another wanted to meet her in person, and a few needed additional guidance about managing the funds. Emily sighed, rubbing her temples. Why is helping people sometimes so complicated? I chuckled. Welcome to life, Emily, but every mistake is a lesson, and every problem solved makes you stronger. She laughed, shaking her head. I guess Auntie was right all along. Quiet support is never simple, but it's worth it. Asterisk, a week later, Emily received a thank you note from one of the students she had helped. The note was simple. I can continue my studies because someone cared enough to help quietly. Thank you. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. Auntie, I didn't realize just one act of support could mean so much to someone. I squeezed her hand. Exactly. Quiet love, patience, and care. It ripples through life in ways you'll never fully see. But it matters, always, she nodded, wiping her eyes. I think I finally understand what you meant when you supported me quietly all those years. Asterisk, Emily began showing humility not just in big gestures, but in small ones. She thanked friends, helped younger students with advice, and even made extra efforts at home. like cooking simple meals or tidying up without being asked. She also reflected on her past arrogance, laughing at me for being too old, thinking she was independent, and not recognizing my quiet support. Now, she carried herself differently, with gratitude and thoughtfulness. One evening, she said, "Auntie, I feel like I've learned more in these past weeks than all my years at school combined." I smiled warmly. "You have, Emily. And it's just the beginning." Watching Emily quietly help others reminded me of my own journey with her. The tuition payments, the small acts of guidance, the quiet support, all of it had shaped her into someone compassionate, thoughtful, and capable of passing that love forward. I realized the true power of quiet care. It's not about recognition, money, or applause. It's about planting seeds that grow into actions of kindness, humility, and maturity. And now, Emily was living proof of that principle. By the end of the month, Emily had quietly assisted 3 students, leaving notes of encouragement, helping with tuition, and even giving small advice on managing studies. Each act reminded her of the tuition I had supported, and each act strengthened her own sense of purpose. I watched her one evening, smiling as she jotted notes for another student. She looked up, eyes shining, and whispered, "Auntie, thank you for teaching me." Even without me realizing it, I hugged her tightly. "You're welcome, Emily, and now it's your turn to teach someone else quietly, just like you're doing." As the camera would fade out in our story, viewers are left with anticipation. Emily has grown, she's quietly making a difference, and her journey has just begun. It had been a few months since Emily first discovered that I had quietly supported her tuition. Life had shifted subtly but meaningfully. Emily moved with a new confidence, carried herself with humility, and treated the world with a gentleness that made me smile quietly every day. One morning, she was at the kitchen table, notebook open, tea steaming beside her. She glanced at me with a small grin. "Auntie, I've been thinking," she said, "about everything that's happened. About you. About me. About how to make a difference." I leaned back in my chair, smiling. "And what have you realized?" She paused, eyes shining. "That love, real support, doesn't have to be loud. It can be quiet, patient, and still change everything." Over the weeks, Emily had changed in ways big and small. She helped classmates without seeking attention. She stayed organized, thoughtful, and responsible. She carried herself with humility, acknowledging when she needed help and offering help when she could. She laughed more gently, joked without sarcasm, and showed gratitude often, even in her daily life. I noticed it, leaving notes for me, helping tidy the house, making tea just the way I liked it. She had fully embraced the lessons of quiet care I had tried to teach her, without ever demanding recognition. Watching her, I reflected on the journey we had shared. The tuition payments, quietly made, had done more than relieve financial stress. They had shaped her character. The small gestures, invisible at the time, had instilled in her patience, humility, and a sense of responsibility. Her laughter, disbelief, and eventual growth reminded me that lessons don't always land immediately. They take time, and often, the quietest ones leave the deepest impact. I realized then that the story wasn't about tuition. It was about love, patience, guidance, and the ripple effect of quiet support. Emily continued her scholarship efforts, quietly supporting students without seeking recognition. But now, she also guided her younger relatives, friends, and classmates in subtle ways. She left encouraging notes in lockers. She offered study tips without showing off her knowledge. She made time to listen, rather than just give advice. One afternoon, she came to me excited. "Auntie, one of the students I helped just got accepted to their dream program. They sent me a message thanking me." I can't stop smiling. I smiled warmly. That's the power of quiet support, Emily. One small act can ripple into something much bigger than you can imagine. Of course, life still had its humorous moments. One day, she tried to bake cookies as a thank you gesture for a student. Half of them burned. She laughed, exclaiming, "Auntie, I'm terrible at this." I chuckled. "You're learning. The effort matters more than perfection." She grinned sheepishly. "I guess I'm officially your mini auntie in training." I laughed. "Exactly. And remember, the best lessons are." One evening, we sat together, sipping tea. Emily looked thoughtful. "Auntie, I just want to say again, thank you. For the tuition, for your quiet support, for everything. I wouldn't be who I am today without you." I reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "And I couldn't be prouder of the person you've become. You've taken the lessons, lived them, and are now quietly changing the lives of others. She smiled, eyes bright with emotion. I hope I can always do that, Auntie. Quietly making a difference, I nodded. You already are, Emily, and someday, someone else will do the same for another person. And the cycle continues. Weeks passed, and Emily's quiet efforts began to feel natural, almost instinctive. Helping others, supporting friends, and quietly offering guidance became a part of her daily life. She wasn't seeking recognition, her joy came from seeing someone succeed because of her actions. One morning, she came into the kitchen with a small envelope. Auntie, I just helped another student pay for a textbook. They didn't even know who it came from. I smiled warmly. That's the kind of quiet impact that lasts. You're learning the real meaning of support. Her eyes sparkled. I feel fulfilled, Auntie. More than I ever did when I thought independence meant doing everything alone. Watching her, I realized something profound. The very student who had laughed at me for being too old was now someone capable of quietly changing lives. My invisible acts of care had come full circle, inspiring her to do the same for others. You've grown beautifully, Emily, I said softly. Not because of what I did, but because you noticed, learned, and chose to act. She blushed slightly, laughing. I guess I'm officially your mini auntie now. I chuckled. Exactly. And someday, someone else will quietly follow your footsteps too, even as she matured. Emily still had her moments of playful clumsiness. One day, she accidentally sent a note to the wrong student, who replied in shock. Oh no, she exclaimed, covering her face. I didn't mean to scare anyone. I laughed, shaking my head. Don't worry, mistakes happen. What matters is your intention, not perfection, she giggled. I guess even mini aunties mess up sometimes. Exactly, I said. And those mistakes are often where the lessons are hidden. Her quiet actions didn't go unnoticed. Friends, classmates, and even strangers began experiencing her thoughtful support. Some reached out, asking how they could emulate her patience and generosity. Emily smiled, modestly explaining, you don't have to make a grand gesture. Sometimes, the smallest, quietest acts make the biggest difference. I watched, proud and quietly emotional. She had not only grown, she was teaching others the same lessons I had tried to impart to her. One evening, Emily brought her parents to visit me, secretly organizing a small gathering to celebrate her growth. Her mother whispered, "She's changed so much. We didn't realize how much Auntie influenced her." Emily beamed. I finally understand what Auntie has been showing me all along. Quiet support matters more than anything else. I reached over, holding her hand gently. And now, you're ready to quietly support others, just like I did for you. She squeezed my hand. I'll never forget it. And I'll keep paying it forward, quietly, just like you taught me. Reflecting on the entire journey, it was clear, love and support don't have to be loud to matter. Small acts of kindness, when done consistently, ripple into life-changing results. Growth comes in subtle ways, often without recognition. True humility and gratitude transform lives, not just for the one receiving, but for the one giving as well. Emily had absorbed all these lessons. She laughed, cried, helped others, and quietly inspired those around her. I realized the tuition reveal wasn't just a turning point in her life, it was a turning point for all of us. That evening, Emily sat beside me, sipping tea quietly. Auntie, I used to think independence was everything, she whispered. Now I know, independence and quiet support can exist together. You can be strong and still let someone help you. I nodded, smiling softly. Exactly, and that's the lesson I hoped you'd learn. Life is about noticing, caring, and quietly making a difference. She leaned over, hugging me tightly. Thank you for everything, for tuition, for guidance, for patience, for love. I finally understand, and I'm proud, I said, hugging her back. Proud of the person you've become, and proud that the lessons are now alive in you. If this story teaches anything, it's this: the quiet gestures often go unseen, but they shape lives more deeply than any loud announcement ever could. Sometimes, the person who seems too old to quiet, or too unnoticed, is actually holding everything together. And sometimes, the person who thinks they're independent learns that accepting help and passing it forward creates the strongest kind of growth. Emily's journey reminds us, quiet support changes lives. Small acts ripple into big impact, and love is often the most powerful when it's unseen. And in the end, that's the story of a niece who laughed at her auntie, and the auntie who quietly paid her tuition, watched her grow, and now sees her quietly changing the world.